That is the hard part. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, exactly. My family, God bless them, things like are smaller. You buy it. 10 years ago. Wait 1 more minute in case we have public participation.
Yes.
Are you working too?
I know. But I'm not sure how.
You said you worked with Drew?
Okay, so it's 6 o'clock. And I call the October 10th meeting of the Bethlehem Public Library Board of Trustees to order. First order of business is public participation. Jeff, do we have any?
Just a couple. The
Great.
All right, I got a couple of emails from, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to paraphrase, but I can forward these on. People are concerned that, I do hope you're going to be doing something with all the bricks you have been removed besides throwing them away, giving them away, selling them for a quarter each, 10 cents each, donating them to Habitat for Humanity, something other than waste. They're extremely useful. And there are many people who would like to have it. So I reassured them that we are not throwing them away, we're collecting them. And if we were going to sell them, it wouldn't be a private sale. We would have to do them in accordance with government surplus regulations if we're going to be doing that, if we can't find some place to donate them. But for now, we're just going to keep them until we can figure out what we're doing. I just wanted to express that that was a concern that I've heard from many members of the public. What are we doing with the bricks? So. Sure. And then I got one comment through the mailbox. I'm not really sure this was for you, but I will inform you anyway that oh yes, there were two other ones. So this one was from a member of the public said, I've been hello, I've been using the library for years to study. Unfortunately, there are no real choices for quiet study. The rooms available are not designated for quiet study. Those the study rooms we're talking about, they can still be noisy, is what he's saying. The quiet area is an open area, which is back at the end of the fiction area that's open. It's also not adequate for studying or quiet reading, as employees and customers typically walk around this area. Kids are typically roaming in this area as well, crying, etc. Can you assign a quiet room? Alternatively, add glass partitions to the quiet area so it can block noise. I asked about this option about 2 years ago and nothing has been done. And then the last one I got was a patron who said that the carpet in the children's area needs to be cleaned or replaced. Which is something we're.
Good, thank you. Okay, so everyone has in front of them the ethics statement. The next order of business is the ethics statement. If everyone can please sign it. It's a change in verbiage that we had discussed previously. It's pretty straightforward, and Kristen can pick those up at the end of the meeting. All right, and the next item then is a special presentation by John McPhillips from the school district, Chief Business and Financial Officer. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Not sure how special the presentation may be, but I just wanted to thank the board as well as Jeff for inviting me here this evening. I know there may be some questions that I'm happy to at least try to answer. If not, I will certainly research those questions and get back to you. One of the things that Jeff asked that I sort of highlighted is just the overall schedule for the project that you're considering. And what I'd recommend is here is looking at it from two separate sides, where you are today on October 10th and where you need to be on May 21st, which is the planned budget vote for both the school district vote as well as the library vote. Sort of work forwards and backwards at the same time. So you're at October 10th now. I know there's a couple of administrative steps that you need to consider and take over the course of the next several weeks and months. We'll get to those in a few moments. But working backwards, if the school district and library vote and associated propositions are put in front of the voters on May 21st, you need to work back a couple of separate steps from that. You need to issue a 45-day legal notice advertising what the district library vote entails, whether what just the raw budget numbers are in terms of your operating budgets, any bus propositions, whether it's a change in policy or a bus proposition or a capital project proposition that would need to be advertised in the area local papers no less than 45 days in advance of that vote. That puts you on or about April 6th. Prior to that, the Board of Education would need to adopt a resolution sort of signify or memorializing what that language and legal notice should say. I'm not sure how the Library Board of Trustees calendar lines up against that, but the Board of Trustees would need to do a similar parallel action. So you could be, early part of March, maybe first week of March, in terms of the administrative procedural steps, starting with the library board to get to where you needed to be for a May vote. So there's a lot of weeks in between there, but the way it's structured, there's certain trigger points. Now, you can call special meetings, and if you can convene a quorum of the board that may be off your regular meeting schedule to get those done, that's certainly an option. But sort of working backwards on the calendar, that puts you where you need to be probably that first week of March to get to your May vote. Working from October 10th sort of forward, there's a couple of additional administrative steps from where I sit that I think you folks should consider. One of which is, okay, your size of your project, what does that look like? I know there's a couple of properties that the library presently owns, but because those properties are part of the larger project footprint, needs to be a lot consolidation. And those properties need to be absorbed under the title of the school district in order for that project, I'm anticipating to move forward. Again, my guess is that it's not necessarily a big lift. It's cumbersome administratively. You got to get on the necessary agendas. I'm not sure what the zoning board may need to be on that. The Board of Trustees would need to take action. Our Board of Education would need to take a similar parallel action to assume ownership of those parcels. Again, so thinking ahead, that may put us somewhere around December-ish if all those steps sort of occur at the appropriate timelines given the set schedule. I'm not sure, and Ashley McGraw may be able to give a little bit more detail. I'm not sure if or where the project may stand in terms of the seeker process. I know that takes, depending on what type of seeker you're pursuing, that could add anywhere between 3 or 6 months to that process. You can certainly run those in parallel, but that's something to consider as well. Some additional administrative steps in terms of housekeeping. The Board of Trustees of the library probably provide the district a scope of what the project is, the timeline, the budget, so we can provide that to the district bond council for purposes of borrowing, as well as an agreement in terms of just memorializing what the bonding relationship looks like. District will go out to bond. These are the terms and conditions that the district expects in terms of any principal and interest payments from the library to the district to satisfy that note and any associated principal and interest payments for that note. That we can sort of certainly work in tandem. Doesn't necessarily impact the overall timeline, but those are at least recommendations and some administrative steps recommended to the district from its bond council.
Thank you.
Sure. Does anyone have any questions for John?
Okay. Who's it?
You go ahead.
Okay. All right. Two. Sure. The March timeframe for approving language generally for the ballot. Could that be moved to like around April 1st? I mean,
So
Because
yes,
yeah, it sounds like a little bit very like early. April,
if you do,
but,
and I was looking at our board regular schedule meeting, right? So the board, our board, the district's Board of Education would need to call a special meeting sometime after to approve that, because it's really, it's the 45-day mark that
Right.
governs everything prior to that. So yes, I think that the March 20th, if you're looking at the Board of Education calendar, is that second meeting date. We could, if the board was open to considering a later date, sometime later in March or earlier in April.
Okay.
That would certainly be an option.
So
I can't speak for the board, but
but as long as you made the April
on or about April
the
6th, yeah.
45, is
Yeah.
we have to align our meetings to make sure there's enough meetings, but
That's right.
so the early March isn't a firm timeframe, it's a matter of matching up the meeting times.
That's correct.
So the text is ready for public notice on April 16th. And then, so I think one of our agenda items is to talk about the parcel, so I don't think the trustees haven't decided which direction to go, whether they should be consolidated by library or under the district. If they were to be consolidated under the district. It was interesting when you talk about bonding. Would the bond then be under by the district who bonded then?
That's correct.
Okay,
That's
I
why,
wanted to make sure.
so in full disclosure, I've learned more about the interrelationship between the school district and library in the last 4 months or so.
Okay.
I was anticipating, which is great because it's a fascinating topic area. My understanding, speaking with district council and district bond council, is that the district currently has title for the existing footprint of the library, this building.
Yes.
The land underneath. Because the project requires the annexing of 2 additional parcels for the current plan and footprint of that building. Those parcels would need to be consolidated in a lot consolidation at the town level to bring it all under one parcel.
Mhm.
So there's going to be some administrative steps associated with that.
And then under one entity, either the library or the district. If the library, if it comes under the library, does the library then go up for the bond, not the district? Or you might not know that.
I don't know that for sure, but the existing footprint would need to also, and title and building would need to revert from the school district
Back to the library.
to the
Right.
library.
Yeah, whoever owns the single parcel once it's consolidated. Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah.
That's it.
But just to coattail on Shamine's point, the district is then bonded, not the library for.
So the district would wind up in going out on the library's behalf and bonding the project.
So I'm just curious about optics. So
Yep.
when this appears on a, someone reads about this in the paper, or it appears on a ballot. It says, does it come across as the district is bonding it, or does it come across as the library is
So
doing
I don't want to necessarily speak for the project proposition language, but you're gonna have your ballot, right?
Yeah.
Which it may be a very long ballot or a very small writing,
Yeah.
given the number of propositions that on it. You're gonna have the way, whatever way it's usually scheduled, your operating budget for the district. Possibly a bus proposition if there is one. I don't think the district is considering a capital project proposition for 24-25. Then the library project proposition, and we'll work with our bond council to give you the language, and it'll be a project of X, Y, and Z, not to exceed amount of whatever dollar value you're thinking of. There'll be financing options in terms of use of no more than, percentage or dollar value of undesignated fund balance. The rest to be issued through debt service, through bands or bonds that they do provide a little bit of just flexibility depending on what you want. But that the district would be the holder of the note, so to speak. And that's why the relationship and the arrangement and memorializing who's paying what in what way is important as well.
And I bring that up because that could require some public relations, and that I don't, my immediate concern is that it will look like we are taking money away from the education of Bethlehem children. Not that the library doesn't do that, but that it could look like, the district is giving us.
Well, I also know ahead of all the budget votes, the district puts up the highlights. And there's usually, not that everyone reads the 2 to 5 pages that's in there, but I would imagine they would flesh that out too, you know, just talking about like what's on the ballot, and then you're right, we would have to be saying about, you know, this is. I forget, but yeah, but the highlights I know goes into great detail as to what's on the ballot and why, and so, because you don't want people to think that the district's bonding.
Yep.
For the district projects, when in fact the district's bonding, if it consolidates under the district, district's bonding for the library projects, so that we would have just to work a lot on that.
And so I think you answered my question, which is who writes the resolution? If the bond council typically would write the resolution,
Yeah.
because I was like, I don't know what that looks like.
Yeah.
That's helpful. Thank you.
One misplaced comma and the whole intent of the resolution changes.
Any other discussion or questions for John? Anybody? No? All right, well,
Board of Ed meets every
Every
Tuesday,
every
even, or it's like second
every first and third Wednesday.
Wednesday of a month.
Yes. And usually once in July, once in August, but usually inside that. As you folks, you know, work through the process, you know, feel free to use the district as a resource. Jeff, Sherry, and I had met with our bond council as well as our capital advisor, sort of giving some benchmarks. Hey, if you borrow this over this period of time, this is what it may impact in terms of your operating budget, so you guys can strategize and plan. So I'm happy to hook you folks up, whatever. Rick Yancey is a stand-up person and partner, and he'll give you whatever information. He's pretty quick about it too. So
Yeah, it's online, but it would be helpful perhaps if we got a schedule of the Board of Ed meetings. And that sent out to us so that we can be always mindful of when are they meeting, when do we, what, because that will start driving the deadlines for tech, at least for text, so that would be helpful to get.
Good on you.
all right. Thank you, John, very much for your time. We appreciate it. Okay, so next order of business, Suzanne is here from Ashley McGraw Architects with a brief presentation. Welcome, Suzanne.
Hi, thank you. Looks like the host needs to enable screen sharing, please.
Okay, give me a second.
Thanks.
All right, should be all set.
Great. Okay, can you all see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Great, okay. So good evening. Thanks for having us again. I'm here to provide a design update. We're getting close to the end of schematic design phase. We're looking to wrap up in about a month or so. And so I'm going to run through some of those updates and then talk about what's next. So quick agenda. Visioning, we've kind of carried that through the entire process, and I think it's important to recap on that frequently, make sure that we're still on the right track. There's quite a bit of design and exterior design to touch on, and then just talk a little bit about the communications plan and next steps. So visioning, I'm going to start with the whys. So in terms of why has this project come to where we are now, where did it start, how did it start, and kind of what the project is looking to address. So there's several categories. So one is to address the outdated and aging components of the library facility. So the last significant update was around 50 years ago. There is some asbestos in the building, which limits some of the maintenance being able to be performed. And then the mezzanine level, which is where there's some staff space currently, it's really not suitable. If you've been up there, there's low ceilings, the structural aspects are challenging. And then if we were to look at renovating that into another space, it's not really suitable to anything else either. Another why is that we're looking to add in-demand space for library users. So a couple of those things are that patrons are routinely turned away from things that are like the meeting rooms or the tutoring rooms and other study rooms, that sort of thing. There's just not enough of those. And then meeting space or popular library programming are limited to about 100 people in the community room that's next to where you are now. And then to improve performance space and functionality of the meeting rooms, so the large community rooms. The next category is to add in-demand collection space and improve library function. Bethlehem Public Library has the highest circulation in the Upper Hudson Library System. And the children's area is often very crowded and limited in terms of offerings. The teen area is very small and lacking. Also looking to address curbside pickup function, to improve and expand staff space to improve workflow, safety, efficiency, and adequacy. So I think a lot of those are directly, if you are a community member who's been in the library, we hear a lot of those comments regarding just needing more space. And it's a very well used and well loved library, so providing that. Fourth category is to enhance accessibility of the library facilities and resources. There's been some conversation around what accessibility means as well. So expanding that beyond just physical accessibility to all kinds of accessibility and being welcoming and accessible to all. But a couple of categories under that are to improve accessibility to and within the facility and to the spaces as a resource, to improve parking area safety and added parking spaces, to reduce the distance between the parking and the entry, and then improve the sense of arrival and wayfinding. And then also to enhance the library's environmental sustainability footprint. So looking at energy efficiency and operational savings, to look at the green space that kind of wraps around the library right now and that sort of park-like feel, and then to modernize site utilities to be a good neighbor to some of the homes and other businesses around you. So with those 5 whys categories in mind, that's kind of some of the specific needs. And then we want to also look at what are some of the qualities that the project should have to enhance and join with the existing library. So we've developed a project purpose. This really stemmed from working with community members, the staff, you as the board members, and to look at making sure that we're all on the right path. This is kind of our guiding North Star. So the project purpose is to position the Bethlehem Public Library as a community resource that is accessible to all, offering modern programming in a mindful environment that's nestled within the fabric of the community, designed in a way that's welcoming, simple to navigate, modern, and adaptable to a variety of programs inside and throughout the site, and to optimize the library so that both patrons and staff have cohesive environments to suit their evolving needs and to support the next generation of collaboration, discovery, and learning. We also have guiding principles. This is something last board presentation, we talked a little bit about, so you'll see a couple of updates there. So I did want to pause here and see if there was any thoughts on this, but I'll pause on the second point. So the first one is to create a safer exterior environment that's more accommodating to patrons and library activities with clear vehicle and pedestrian traffic patterns with a more prominent entry. So it's directly pulled out of the purpose statement as well as the whys. So really kind of putting a finer point on it. Then also to be considered, and then here's where I would like some feedback if possible. At one point we had the port and the storm, and that just didn't quite jive right. Then we had just resource, and I apologize, that's a typo, it should say and. But so we're looking at safe space and resource for our community members and a valued community support partner. So I'll stop there for a moment. Did anybody have any time in the last 2 months to think about this since our last presentation? If there is a better phrasing on that. Okay, so does safe space and resource sound at least the best for now?
Yes, I would just say safe space and resource instead of
I think make it yeah.
Okay.
When you say safe space, what does it connote to everyone? I mean, safe space means a lot of things to different people. So safe in terms of physical environment, safe in terms of acceptance, safe in terms of
I think all of those things.
right.
Yeah.
So I think we're embrace all those things.
It's a pretty fluid term.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also say welcoming space.
I was just thinking that. Because to be honest with you, I work a lot with higher ed, the safe space stuff is getting to be a little, not old, but it's said so often without a lot of, so I, to be considered, the welcoming space and resource for our community might be. You know, the safe space just seems to be a catchphrase now with.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay. So we'll look at changing it to be considered the welcoming space and resource for your community members and valued community support partner.
I still say A.
Yeah, I don't think we shouldn't say we're the welcoming place. I think we should say
Okay,
we're
so you're the only one.
We're the only one, exactly, we're a way.
Okay. Great. Then third is to create an easily accessible addition that caters to the library and community program needs and accommodates multifunctional, flexible spaces and increases patron capacity. You'll notice the previous iteration had a number there, and there was talk about that to leave it a little bit general so that it can evolve with the design rather than dictating the capacity. And then lastly is providing adequate space to ensure the multiple demographic needs of patrons are accommodated in functional spaces customized to their intended use and program needs while cohesively integrating efficient employee operational spaces. So I know there's some redundancy in there, but it's helpful for the design team to continue to bring these up to make sure that we're hearing you correctly, that we're all on the same page, and can infuse these into the design moves moving forward. Are there any comments on the whys, the purpose statement, or the guiding principles? Great. Okay. So I'm going to move into design. And so the last time we met, we looked at two options for the community edition. One was slightly smaller, one was a little bit larger, and ultimately the board selected the larger edition option. And one of, I believe, one of the main reasons for this was that the existing community spaces that you have available are the room you're in now and the community room next door, which totals just around 2,200 square feet. As part of the design and the renovation, we're looking at reclaiming these spaces for other uses, some staff space, some to enlarge other teen and children's space. And so if you really look at just that, we're kind of eliminating all community space. So knowing that the new addition needs to accommodate any community space and not in addition to this, the larger addition was selected. So that means, so you'll see here in yellow and the orange, that there's an addition to the north of the building, and there's the orange community spaces. So there's 3 blocks of space that can be divided or opened to create different sizes of space. So the block here is what we're calling a medium-sized space. That can be divided into 2 to have 2 smaller spaces. And then this larger block in the middle here is as one cohesive space, as one large room, can be divided into 2 medium. And then one of those medium rooms can also be divided into 2 small. So that provides several different options for community space configuration, depending on the scale of the event or the program. There's some where it's directly linked to the exterior. This would be near the entry, the west entry here, as well as parking, as well as where the pavilion space would be. So having multifunctional aspects to that space. And then in the yellow here is the circulation space around the larger community area that can be used for gallery space, as well as some kind of touchdown lounge space or reading area or other display. And then we've also looked at a slightly larger kind of circulation zone that connects the east entry and the west entry for some pre-function space, maybe some additional gallery space. And if you kind of think back to the previous iteration, some of that lobby space was very large. We wanted to right size that to make sure that we're effectively using the footprint of the addition. So that is the main kind of design update per the selection on the community size. You'll also see that this reddish area here is the children's area, and that has changed shape. It's roughly the same size as what we've been showing you, but it has changed shape to accommodate the larger community addition, kind of pushing down into the footprint of the addition there. It also kind of orients it to have this nice view of where the pavilion will be and has great synergies with the exterior environment there. The rest of the design is pretty much as you've been seeing it. So in gray here, the main library with the different stack zones, lounge space, study space, a lot of smaller study rooms. And then in blue is are the staff spaces, and then in purple is the maintenance area. Any questions on the floor plan updates?
Suzanne, on the children's place where you took a little space away for the community area, how much larger is this children's space that you have on the diagram now compared to what we currently have?
So from the last iteration to now, it's about the same size as what you had previously seen. It's just a different shape. So we kind of extended it out. And then compared to the existing footprint, one of the things, the open stack area of the children's library is approximately the same as what you have, but we are adding this footprint of this enclosed space. And we've kind of called it a children's craft area or something like that. But, thinking back to one of the things that Jeff read out first in your meeting is about that noise and the mess and anything like that if there's a children's program. So is you're adding that space of an enclosed area so that there's the ability to kind of contain some of that. So the overall footprint of all of the children's space has grown, but the stack space itself is about the same. It's just a little bit more open. And we can, we can provide you a better.
Did we hear from the public that people really wanted to see a larger children's area?
They definitely want the children's area to be a feature. I mean, that's what we saw in the last, the survey that we did, was that people want a better children's space.
Right.
I think a lot of people say bigger. There could always be more room.
Okay, I keep in mind that the children's area is high on the list of priorities, even with the information that Phil recently collated for us from some survey results. It's the children's place is very important to the community. So if it's the same size as what we currently have, I'm a little worried that this is a large project, and how do you sell that if you aren't making a significant enough change? Although I understand if you organize it well and it's new and shiny, that maybe that works.
I guess the question is the program room that's attached to the children's space, which is a request that a lot of people have. They don't like the fact that the boy room or the community room are so far from the children's area. Is that the get that people really need? Is that having that program space, whether for formal times we're doing the programs in there, many of the story times, if they're not the biggest ones, can be in there. And then that space also doubles as drop-in craft space, or where drop-in crafts we do all the time. Is that the guess that people are looking for the children's space, or do they literally just want more and bigger stacks?
Do you have a sense?
I have opinions. I think what people want is not. I think people are very concerned about losing stack space. They're worried about losing the traditional collection. I think that's what you saw in the survey. Because a lot of people are like, please don't get rid of the books. Don't get rid of the books, right? We're not getting rid of the books. It's in addition to that, though, right now the books are in direct conflict with play space, program space. I mean, it's to the point where the play space on the weekends is inside the picture books. Like, so where people are looking for books is where kids are playing with toys. There just isn't any other room for them to be at those times. So having a play space that was separable enough, I think, gets people what they need. But I did hear very loud, and I think you're right, that people are very concerned that we're going to be shrinking the size of the traditional collections, even though use of the traditional collections is softening. The physical book circulation is a softening number over time. So those two things are in tension. What people say they want and then what they actually do are frequently two different things. So that's why if you hear me kind of hemming and hawing my answer, it's that what they say they want, they would say, I want infinite book space. That's what everybody wants. what they actually use is different. And I have begun to hear some patrons, and I think we've talked about it here, where they're saying they want, get rid of these books and leave me more play space for kids. Kids are trying to come out of the pandemic, and we want to have a play space to gather, like almost like a, there's a lot of those kids, like a Dave and Buster's, but not Dave and Buster's, but you know what I mean, like a gathering place for kids to be here at the library that you don't have to pay for. That is it's an important use of the library, but that's in tension with the traditional use of the library as a place where we get library resources, books. So
I was here yesterday and with my child, and it was hopping
Yeah.
in the children's area. And I feel like a lot can be done with a reconfiguration. I'm imagining too, people maybe want more vibrant. I don't know how much touring of other libraries. I used to live in Saratoga. They have a beautiful, wonderful, warm, and very child-friendly kind of play area. And I'm still trying to get my head around
Yep.
where we are now versus what's on the map. I'm not really good at those spatial kind of things. So the children's, so the enclosed space, could that, it sounds like it is already intended to be multifunctional, but could it also be not just a craft space? Can it also be really imaginative play space and serve that function too?
yeah, I think a lot of the time it would, and I think also. So you're here this weekend, so there was, I'm 100% sure there was a drop-in craft at some table. There was coloring pages or
Yes.
something kind of in the middle.
Yes.
Those kind of things also can go in there,
Yeah.
and also a play space, and then also for the non-movement and music story times, like a regular size story time can go easily into a space like that versus, sometimes we get a movement music with like 80 or 100 people, it probably needs to go into a different space. So
The other feedback I heard was about, and I agree, this is in the weeds.
Yeah.
The prominent location of the computers. Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And we hear, and so that's funny because we hear exactly the two sides of this. People are like, well, the computers are buried, or we had them out during the pandemic. Where's the computers? I want the computers to be here. And then other parents who are like, we come to the library, we want to engage with
Yeah.
books and engage with our children in, touching grass, playing, right? Like out in the real world. And the computers are taking away from that.
Right.
So I hear both sides of that same thing. And so we could probably take a vote. I don't know.
okay.
But yeah.
I have just a thing about this, since we're talking about the children's space, but then I have a question about the staff space. How much, I realize we've been talking about this craft space for a long time.
Mhm.
Do you want it? And if you were to take it out, does that give you the perception of big space?
You're saying to like eliminate it and use it as
Yeah,
sort of open
Yeah, do
space.
something else with it, like take out the walls.
I have a feeling if you take the walls out, what you're gonna have is that size space dedicated to a play area.
Yeah.
I mean, which we have now a little bit.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? It's definitely
I know we've kind of been talking a lot about the craft space, it's pretty much a final, almost close to final design, but I'm hearing your concern. My concern too, early on was, I wasn't interested in building a playground at the library. We were talking about this big tree thing and all these other, it's like. So I think we want people to have places to engage, whether or not we want to have a playground in the library, at least it's separate now.
right. I don't know that desire is universal, right? So I think there's a lot of people that exactly would look at you, would come in here if you ask them and say, I 100% do want a play space in the library. And it's an important discussion because you're getting into what's it mean to be a modern library? What does that mean? And I don't want to be the only one to speak about the playroom because I'm not the best person. I would want either Frank or Chris, someone who how that would actually be engaged, I think could speak a lot more eloquently about the use of that room and the importance of the space, because the librarians feel very strongly that that's an important space that we would use. And it's, one of those things where you can talk generally about what it is, but also 2 weeks after you have it, people would say, I can't believe we ever got along without it. I mean, it's I think it would be very.
So my question about the staff space, so I'm gonna call it the upper one, which I'm not sure what it looks like to you, Suzanne, but I don't know rights and lists, but
Yeah.
the one up there, what's that? Remind me what that big thing is in the middle of it. So we've got the offices, that,
Here.
yes, what is that?
So there's currently several staff members who need a workspace, but they don't need a dedicated office. So that is graphically shown as some workstations. We're still kind of massaging exactly how many, how big, and the positioning of them within that space, but they're workstations for staff.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. I appreciate all the conversation about the children's library. We've heard a lot of great comments tonight and other times where it's looking at how can we optimize the space. So being mindful and strategic of what that additional space is used for and how it's organized and used. So at the moment, while we're trying to get to a firm footprint of this space, there's always we're still early in the process, so time to refine how that space is outfit, but looking at can we be strategic with organizing the stacks so that we're not reducing any space of that, even potentially having more space, and then organize that in a way that there's ample floor space for playtime. There's also the craft or whatever it ends up being called. We've had conversations around it being elements that children can explore and discover, and that's how they learn. There's sensory elements we've talked about. So there's a lot that, that is also how children in that age group are learning in the same way that maybe adults learn from reading a book. So having those different opportunities there in the children's library. So to provide a little context on where this is, here's a site plan. So this is a little bit of an update on the graphics of this. So the existing library is the lighter orange color. And then the darker orange is the addition. So you can see kind of the comparison of old to new. And from very, very early in this process, we had looked at multiple different locations on the site to have the addition and how it would break up the internal programs as well as the parking area. So as kind of a reminder, we'd selected this option where it kind of splits through the site a little bit. It was actually called Split the Middle, so that the library becomes a multi-entrance library from the most prominent side where people come in for parking and that sort of thing. And also then bringing the entry point closer to the parking, kind of allowing the parking to wrap around the building a little bit also helps with slowing traffic down, looking at how we can continue to refine and study that. And then it also, again, it kind of allows this lobby space that runs from front to back here in the library on the east entrance and west entrance. And then you can see the parking wrapping around it. There's the curbside pickup loop here that can also be used for drop off for events, things like that. There's lots of ADA parking spots around the closer areas. Looking at electric vehicle charging stations around the site. You'll see the pavilion here, and looking at how we're connecting the Delaware Avenue side of the landscape to the Borthwick Avenue side as well.
You need the parking on the roundabout. I see, I don't know if that's representative, but like 8 spaces there or something.
These here?
Yeah. Do
Yeah.
you need them? I mean, it seems like people backing out on the roundabout seem pretty kind of cumbersome. I don't know. I just worried about that, those
Okay.
parking spaces there. But
Okay. We can look at that, and in terms of what's required, I think it's really the ask was to maximize parking for when there's events. So, if you're thinking that those are not needed, we can look at removing those.
or reducing maybe, I don't know.
Any other questions on the site plan? Okay. So I'm going to jump into exterior design, and I'm going to run through this really quickly. You all will have received an exterior design packet. Hopefully it went out to you today. And the goal is to give you some time to look through that and digest that. And we'll be meeting with you as a committee working session next week to go through that in more detail, to get your feedback, to hear your comments, good, bad, anything is helpful. Any types of comments are helpful. So want to gather as much of that up. So tonight I'm going to kind of walk you through that design quickly. And if there's any preliminary questions, but anticipating to kind of just give you a primer on this so that you have the week to digest and look in closer. So a couple of the things that we look at when we look at how the additions and how we weave those together, how that should be crafted. One of the things we look at is existing conditions. So there's architecture that's part of the existing building that we need to be mindful of, some from a structural perspective, from an architectural and aesthetic perspective, but taking cues from some of that as we're weaving together old and new. So you have some horizontal banding around the building. Then there's a lot of brick, as everyone knows. But then there's some great kind of other aspects in terms of landscaping and pathways and where the windows are placed and how natural light comes into the building with skylights and that sort of thing. So we've studied that in terms of how what we want to take from that to inform the new facade. We also look at precedents, and as part of the community session over the summer, as well as some other conversations in a working session, we've looked at a lot of different precedent images from, everything from metal to other kinds of stone and things like that. And some of the ones that really, I think, resonated most with this group and other community feedback that we got was looking at bringing some natural elements into the materiality. Looking at how that can help to make the brick look lighter and brighter, and also how it can kind of tie in and evoke that welcoming newer vibe without being too stark and strange of a contrast to the existing brick, and then how we can look at weaving those together. So these are some of the images that were, I think, best received. So we've kind of taken the existing conditions and some of your temperature taking on these to inform two options that we're looking at. The option A that you'll be seeing in your packet is looking at how we can start layering the different materials on the facade, but then kind of peeling that away and looking at some curved shapes in that peel away. It softens some of that a little bit, provides a little if you recall at all, there's a couple of sort of curved wing walls on the exterior of the library that are not well received by, I think, many, but it has a nice kind of organicness to the building where everything else is rectilinear and has some harder angles. So looking at bringing in some softer elements to that and curving of that to kind of also denote where should it be solid and where should glass be in the building. You also can see some specific precedents on the left here that respond to that. The exact scale of this, we're still kind of refining some of that, but you'll see how the roof comes together and has the higher areas is where the community space is here on the bottom left. And then the children's library and that main entry on the west side is kind of peeking in between there. Go to the next one. So this would be a view of when you're coming off of Borthwick Avenue and you are looking to pull around the site to the west parking. On the left is the east parking, and that's that corner view where the community rooms are inset. So you see that kind of wave pattern there. We also heard early on that canopies are great in terms of allowing pedestrians to kind of go all the way around if it's raining, that sort of thing, and also helps the layering and scale of the building. The community rooms do need to be taller, so the scale is going to look a little taller there, but how can we kind of bring that back down to a neighborhood scale? So that's option A. Option B is looking at taking some of those wood elements and forms in a little different method and kind of bringing those to the underside of the canopy, and those can start to come into the building as well and be that kind of bridge between outdoor and indoor. So here you don't see the wave or the the organic peel away, but there's this other sort of biophilic element in those wood elements there. You can also see that we've looked at the main community space for the room, with the rooms that are the block of rooms that's larger has a little bit of a separation from the smaller block of rooms so that there's more visibility directly into that and kind of tying the circulation zones together. Then also the canopy here is the same view from the first option. You see the canopy here at the entry point. The children's library is off to the right. And we can look at, how much glass versus opaque materiality there. And then another view, this is from entering from Borthwick and how that could potentially look. So again, if there's any really initial comments or thoughts, otherwise we'll have our working session next week to get a lot of feedback from you all. And what we like to do is, look at what are the pros and cons of each. We can end up with a hybrid scheme. We can pull parts and pieces from each, or massage and refine things that you're not a huge fan of, and so that we can kind of come to one design that meets the desires and thinking of all of the stakeholders, but as well as the purpose and guiding principles that we set out to meet. Any questions or comments initially?
I'm just happy to know that those things are called wing walls. So that's helpful. Thank you.
I know.
I'm
I
not
won't-
sure if that's the official architectural word for it, but
I know I'm not gonna be able to attend that meeting, and I defer to my colleagues in terms of choices and discussion. The only thing that I have brought up from the start is to the sight line and safety. That's let me repeat to that in terms of sight line and safety of the building.
absolutely. Okay, great. Okay. So last topic is just that we have been working with the library to develop a communications plan. So we're looking to kick that off very soon. And so the intent here is to how do we get from now until when the vote is looking to be potentially, and making sure that everyone is well informed, has opportunity to contribute and participate in various conversations, and knows what's going on. So really brief, the outreach is going to be around a couple of key elements. So displays of the project process and design updates and happenings displayed inside the library. There's also going to be a launch of a website that really specifically talks about all of the aspects to the design, to the process, a record of past meetings and presentations. And then updates will come through via newsletters, social media, informational videos, and that sort of thing. And then having community events. So as was discussed earlier, there's kind of a public requirement, but I think the goal here is to far exceed that requirement and really bring the community into this conversation, continue that conversation, and inform how best to craft this design moving forward. So there's that plan will be rolled out very soon and includes these key elements. Any questions on that? Okay. So lastly, just next steps. Again, we're working to wrap up schematic design in about a month. And the primary elements there, besides kind of working out the design, is to get a really good cost estimate. And that will inform the bond or the project cost, and thus the bond amount. And then we're also looking at, as part of that environmental energy efficiency aspects, we're looking at energy modeling for the addition and how can we best have the architectural and mechanical systems, electrical systems perform. So we'll have those updates soon. And then the facade design and that working session that I talked about. We're also working, as was part of the topic earlier, about kind of when that vote should be and the secret process and all of that kind of, so planning for that. Additional community outreach as will be rolled out in the communications plan. and then wrapping up schematic design in mid-November. We would anticipate rolling into just continuing the design process after that. But the ongoings now are to get us towards that cost estimate, and thus kind of working through that planning for the vote. Any questions on that? Okay, well, that's all I have tonight.
Get a copy of those initial slides. I know we have the other one. but-
Yep, Suzanne, can we, yeah, everything we put up on the public, no, we'll get it, yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, thanks very much, Suzanne, for sharing your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
Thanks, Suzanne.
Bye.
Alrighty, so next order of business is to review the previous meeting's minutes on pages 3 through 9 in the packet. Is there any discussion on the meeting?
Yes. Under the first page of the trustee appointment. Wanting to know what Mark noted. Yes, I will.
There's probably the end of the paragraph is missing.
That's an open-ended statement, we can give me anything, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's not me, so it's a little dangerous.
I think I said something during the intense interest in the appointment or something, that many candidates, yeah, right. Good catch.
Lisa, did you have something else? Or was
No,
it
it's
saying
the same.
Laura? Okay. All right, does anyone else have any discussion or questions? If not, I'll take a motion to accept the minutes from the previous meeting. So moved. A second? All those in favor? Opposed? I'm in favor, sorry. Motion carries. Okay. And the next, we have the financial report, Sherry, on pages 10 through 19.
So revenue and expenses are tracking very closely to last year at this time. We're still, in the early part of the fiscal year. You'll see a new revenue line. Do you want to scroll to maybe? There's a new revenue line there called Friends of BPL Contributions. Previously, contributions from Friends of the Library were credited to special programs, netting against expenses, offsetting the program expenses. Good accounting practice calls for revenue to be reported as revenue and expenses as expenses. So we made that adjustment, and as the year goes on, you'll see, whatever the contributions are, you'll see them very clearly. They'll be listed right there, and our expenses will be what they are. They're not going to change, and hopefully will be clearer and easier to understand. What are our true expenses, special programs, and what has the Friends of the Library contributed to help offset those expenses. You'll be able to see that right in the statements. I do want to mention that we have received $3 million of our tax revenue last week, I think it was. So you'll see that in the report next month. We're very happy to have received that because our funds were getting a little low. Spendable funds were getting a little low because we have some money tied up in CDs and the Treasury bill, which I think the CD and the Treasury bill both come due in November, and we'll look to make a decision about how we want to handle that, rolling it over or adding some funds or taking funds away. We'll look at the whole financial picture to make a decision about that. I don't know if anybody has any questions about the report before I talk about the audit. Any specific concerns or questions?
Does the report include the warrant checks?
Yeah,
Okay, so I did, and I let Jeff and Shari know I would ask about it. So there's a check to agency called Malware Bytes or something. Is that cybersecurity? What is that?
Antivirus.
Oh, that's what I assumed it was, but I just wanted to ask, so that's just protection for the library's computer. I think it's great that people know that that's something that the library invests in. And then, were there costs associated with the audit? There was-
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
There's a check right below that to, I think
yes,
I was like 3,500, I assume that was the audit.
yes.
Okay.
Marvin and Company was purchased by another audit firm called MMB, which stands for Mengel, Medzer and Bar.
Okay,
Never heard of them before, but they're a bigger firm, and so they've been absorbed by that firm. So you'll see the disbursement to MMB, not to Marvin. But that was part of our audit fees.
okay, great. That's what I assumed. Thank you. That's it.
So I just want to mention that we're wrapping up the financial audit. The auditors are going to be in the library again on the 12th, just to finish up some outstanding items. And they'll be working on the draft financials, which I hope to have by the last week of October, so I can have a chance to review them, and the finance committee here can meet, and I can go over it with the finance committee, and then the audit firm will present the financial statements at the next board meeting.
Well, thank you, Sharon, for keeping us proper on the way that we report our expenses. So, yes. I'm on it. Okay, so I'll take a motion to approve the financial report.
I'll make a motion to approve the financial report.
Second. Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Next is personnel report on page 20.
Okay, so as sometimes happens, when we roll down to that existing one. You want me to be clear, so I'm passing out, I have a just updated hot off the presses. Updated personnel report. Someone backs it down. So what we were requesting was to backfill the full-time library clerk for the incumbent who had been promoted to senior library clerk. So that's, I'm still asking for that. We've also had just today a resignation for another full-time library clerk who has another great opportunity. So in any case, leaving us bereft, but we are very happy for them. And so I'm asking to fill that. Also, that other full-time library clerk. And then if those two are approved, the backfill for Chris O'Brien's job, which is the top one, which I'm seeking your approval. We have a selected incumbent inside who we move from part-time to full-time for that position. If that's approved, I also need to backfill that person's position, the part-time position, and that's the one that's on the bottom. So two full-time clerks and a part-time.
You have any questions? Discussion?
No, but a comment would be it'd be helpful to have a pointer next time. Just because I'm trying to follow the words,
Got it.
and if you could point it, that would have been helpful for me. Thank you.
Will you be putting this in the packet?
Yeah.
We update the packet afterwards, but if
Yeah,
we don't,
this is packet.
once we publish the packet, we don't update it because we used to have trustees who made notes on the packet, and so I don't update the packet at the last minute. If that's, we can talk about that some other time, in any case.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, I'll take a motion to approve the personnel report.
The motion to approve it?
Second. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, next item is the director's
All
report.
right, so as anybody who walked in the plaza entrance, noticed today that there's some plaza resurfacing. The bulk of the work should be done tomorrow. If there's any finish up, it would happen on Thursday. But the folks from the town highway department have been absolutely amazing, and I want to say that on record. They really did a good job. I hope you're satisfied with the way it looks out there. And they really did a good job matching the asphalt to the height of the existing cement out there. So I had comments from patrons who came up and said, well, yes, we had some big fall out there, and I wanted to see what you were doing to help make that better. So they were very interested in everything that's going on out there. And again, I'll reiterate the comments, lots of comments about the bricks, but I'm very concerned about the bricks. I don't have a plan yet for you about the bricks, but I'll bring more information to you about what we're gonna do with the bricks.
Very concerned that we didn't throw away the books.
That they're not thrown away. They're definitely not gonna be thrown away. All right, they're still.
More than one.
Really? Okay.
Oh, you too?
No, I mean.
Okay.
I
Oh,
think
you
we
missed them.
I missed that.
Yeah.
I missed that, yeah.
Lots of folks very concerned about the bricks,
Throw the bricks.
so
Yeah.
they've been informed about the bricks.
Yeah.
So the Friends of the Library had another successful book sale. They raised even more money, even though the number of books that they had was actually smaller than the spring sale, as is normal. So they raised a very similar amount of money, about $3,600, and they were not able to, because of capacity issues, they were not able to accept donations, but they are looking at that for the spring. So, hot take. And we had I want to highlight the Bethlehem Historical Association. We had this speaker series, again, is back up and running. We were able to record that again so people can watch it later. So that was that started back up for this summer, or for the fall session again. Lots of early literacy programs, lots of programs for kids, very successful, running a bunch back to back. There was some schedule changes I did hear from a couple people that said, oh, now there's not one on Monday, but there's 2 on Tuesday. And anytime we have to change stuff around like that. But I think we're in good shape. Any other highlights? You can read the report. I don't need to read through this for you. And I just do want to highlight the virtual author talk series. It's we push it out virtually, but there are some really great authors,
So good.
and they're getting so we do this as part of what's called the Library Speaker Consortium. So we get a quality of author that we couldn't possibly get being Bethlehem Public Library. They are virtual, right? I know people like things to be in person, but they're very high quality, and they are recorded later on for different lengths of time. They have to do with the contract between the publisher and the consortium. So they're in there. We had 97 views for Lydia Bastianich, who's an Italian cookbook author, or say an author about Italian cuisine, and just some other really good authors. And got John Stamos coming on November 1st. I mean, hey, who wants to go?
And there was one today, that actually was very good.
Was it
Great Steve.
Is it today?
Oh, yeah,
That was
excellent travel. Yeah.
That was very fantastic.
So lots of good outreach this month. Lauren and Sam went over to the Five Rivers Fall Festival. They had 575 people at the table, so it's a big deal. I talk frequently about how that's a premium service. It's expensive for us to have someone there and still have the staff here, but people do like it when we're out there. We had the expedition party. There were again about 600 people total at the expedition party. That was the wrap up to the summer long Upper Hudson event where people went to visit all the different libraries. It was fun. We went down there. Chris, Laura, and Frank and I went down, and we had a good time. Connect Four. Everybody likes the big Connect Four. And then middle school, just reach out to the Bethlehem Middle School PTO. So it was library card sign up month. So I don't know if everybody saw the new designs for the library cards. They're very popular. The fantasy, adventure, fairy tale, mystery, and romance were the favorites. But working with Jessica C of the Studio Printly in cooperation to get those. Thanks, Phil. Very popular. And then the staff in circulation doing yeoman's work to print out all of those cards, because we have to be individually print those. We don't send those out to be printed off for custom library cards. We print those off. So,
So they printed all the expedition cards, right?
we did do that, right? We were trying. I don't want to steal any of Upper Hudson's thunder. They did a ton of work. The folks at Upper Hudson did a ton of work, but our staff did print off all the gold and platinum cards that celebrated people who completed the expedition. Because they're awesome. I mean, that's great. An increase this year in library card sign-up, so that's wonderful. And again, I'm always surprised sometimes. I shouldn't be anymore by the statistics, but we had just during last month, we had 609,000 or 6,009 individual unique users of the library who are, so that's a very high percentage, 50% of our active people were in here in 1 month. So that's amazing. And we did meet with the Historical Association, Mark and I, and there's some requests about that. We can have further discussions about how what happens with local historical documents, whose job it is to preserve them. I think the Bethlehem Historical Association, their opinion is strongly they feel the library would be a great place to host some of that material. So continue that discussion as we move forward, but we did meet with them. It was a productive discussion. And then lots of meetings about state environmental quality.
That's great.
I got two things. First, I want to thank Sarah. She helped me with the consumer report. She did a special sheet for me, and I want to thank her publicly. And then I had a question about the listening sessions. Are we gonna get going with those again? I think the librarian retired, who did them,
Michael, yeah.
Michael. So I wondered if that's still on can recruit someone else to do those. Maybe.
I don't have an answer for you. Frank's here.
Okay, all right. Yeah,
I don't need to call you out. but-
No, I mean, I don't have an answer yet, because I mean, Michael,
he was the guy.
he was the guy,
Great
so
guy.
we'll have to identify someone else to.
Yeah, I can help with that too. If you have, I have some ideas and maybe we can talk later. And I think that's a great thing with the library. I think so. That's a service we should continue to possibly.
Yeah, and I won't bore you all with the statistics, but again, some modest increases in circulation over last year, 7%, and then large increases in door count. So a 23% increase in door count, 7% increase in circulation. Just further evidence that people are returning to physically using the library. In state.
Okay, thanks, Jeff, for highlighting the vibrant work our library does. All right, next up is Lisa with the UHLS report.
Our meeting is tomorrow, but I'm gonna give you a little surprise. No, not surprise, but expedition statistics are going to be reported tomorrow, but I was a little surprised to see that of the roughly 2,000 people that were taking part of them, almost a little more than 900 became 36ers, which is shocking to me.
That's a lot of time.
Yeah,
Yes.
over 40,000 visits, so wow.
Yeah.
And the only other thing I wanted to call out is the NILA conference that's next month, because Tim Burke gave a little plug to all of us that it's in Saratoga this year. It's not in Saratoga next year, it's in Syracuse next year, and it actually counts towards your trustee training. So if you're going, that's one of the things you can use it for. And I have talked to Jeff, I'm gonna go for it. So
Is there a list of sessions or?
there are a lot of sessions. Yeah, and it's multiple days and so.
Pre-pandemic, they were actually working up a pretty good trustee day on Saturday, and I don't think that's not
Yeah, I
their
wouldn't say
focus
that's
anymore.
strong.
It was kind of intellectual freedom and trustees and the school librarians who can't get out frequently during the week. It's very hard for teachers to get away from schools during the week. So that we'll see if that reemerges. And I know that's hard to dedicate a Saturday, but it also can be hard to dedicate a weekday. So there are sessions on Saturday, but it's not as robust as it used to.
And that's like a half day.
It's a half day. It's a quick half day.
Is there like a link of the program, so like something posted, so?
I'll send
Yeah,
you
they don't have a fabulous website, but it's passive.
But something so we can actually look
I'll
at it and
send
say,
it.
okay, yeah, we're thinking.
Lisa, do you know offhand, were there any author visits? Because I went through the website and I actually had a hard time
There
navigating through it.
is one person doing a lunch, I think.
But that's an extra, yeah, we can do that's an extra cost. There's not.
Yeah, I
yeah,
think
there's not.
that's it.
So not like previously where there were
No.
author visits, yeah, okay, I just wondered.
And just a related plug, there's a book festival up in Saratoga this weekend. So. To go and hear authors.
All right. Okay, next up, new business, the 23-24 plowing contract. Page 26.
Okay, so you have here the our my proposed and selected recipient of our bid is from Young Landscapes, and same people who did our plan last year. We're very pleased with them. And the bid for the winter is $13. So it's over my approval limit. So I need your permission to accept the contract with Young.
I think we did have a discussion about this last meeting and everyone seemed okay with the service. Does anyone? I was gonna say, does anyone have any questions or discussion?
They had requested that the library might explore a 3-year contract, and I was explaining that that's an even more formal bid process because that's above the limit. It would be above the limit for a public work. I wasn't immediately opposed to it, but I didn't want to decide that this year. We didn't have the time to do that.
It's just surprised that,
Yes.
I was just surprised how long. Starts like later this month.
How long the winter goes around here?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Disappointed and surprised, right? So the winter goes.
A little bit.
Yeah, right, yeah.
So how much, I'm just curious, how much of an increase is it over last year?
Oh, sure. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry,
I don't know the answer. I'm gonna have to forward that to you. Let me see if I can.
it's okay, it's not relevant for my votes. Okay, if there's no further discussion on that, then
I think he's finding it.
I don't know.
Okay,
I'm gonna look. I'm gonna look and see if I can. Oh, 5.
very honest.
I'll make a motion to approve the. Plowing contract.
Okay, so,
I'll second it.
all right, all those in favor? Opposed, motion carries. This item is, do you say SECRA?
Seeker, I think I
Seeker.
usually hear seeker, so, but it's
There's an
because
A.
it's the act, is that, SEQRA, State
And I-
Environmental
yeah,
Law
just-
Review. Is why we have to do that, the process is probably. So. We had a good meeting today, you heard a little bit about this from John, we were talking with our folks from Ashton McGraw and our landscape architects. The fact that we're a school district public library makes this a little different than what everybody's used to with the school district, but basically the process is relatively similar. They heard they said, oh, of course, the school district is going to be the lead agency. I said, why would you assume the school district would be the lead agency? When we did the HVAC contract, the HVAC project, the library was the lead agency on that. That was a much simpler project. Fair enough. So we talked through with Ashton McGraw this morning about what we would need to do. There's plenty of time. So we got that. I think I heard that pretty loud and clear today, that there's time for us to get this done. And they did hear it was our desire to be the lead agency on this. And then we're going to have to engage an attorney to guide us through the process, because no one did process. So I guess what we need to decide is that the library wants to be the lead agency on this project, as it was on the HVAC contract. I think that's.
Is there any downside to us not, or?
I don't think so. I think it's just, I think Ashton McGraw's assumption was because I think their assumption was just that the school district was going to do it. They're like, oh, have the school district's attorneys write up the seeker process. And I'm like, the school district attorneys don't answer them. So, hello. So I think their assumption was that the school district would be the lead agency, and I guess we were operating under the assumption that. So.
I took notes after the meeting too, that what they basically says is one of the attorneys, whether it's ours or the district, puts out a letter to all entities involved. And then gives them 30 days to respond, and the library becomes the lead after that. So then you fill out a bunch of forms.
Sorry, I guess my question. Secret understanding can be a real holdup on things. I understand we could get the process done, but it's about the agency having to approve it, right?
It's more about our requirements for public notice. And then the type of project that this is, which is going to be, everybody seems to say it's a type 1 project.
Okay.
So, and the biggest concerns are going to be stormwater mitigation. Because we're changing the hardscape of the library, the plaza, the building changes a little bit, but mostly it's going to be the parking lot. And then we have to address with the public how we're going to address stormwater.
And I think Ashley McGraw said that they had.
Yeah, they're.
They're the remedy, so.
Would the answer to this question be at all dependent on the lot consolidation?
No, as it turns out, that was kind of my assumption as well. And I think it was an assumption on the part of our architects that both of the lot consolidation and seeker process would happen through the school district. And I think this is part of the learning process for our architects as well about the relationships between the library and the school district. So no, it's just they're very strong recommendations that we get a good attorney who understands this, because it's really not something we're going to be running.
Okay, so to confirm, when Lisa asked, is there any downside to it being us? There's no downside.
I think unless, I mean,
Then we have to find a good
we have
attorney.
we have to find a good attorney and pay them. I think the other thing would be to enter into some sort of. The school district's not going to take a debt on, I mean, all of this work, the school district's not going to do, we would have to make some sort of,
Extra steps, more time.
yeah.
And does it have to be a separate attorney than who the school district uses? Or can we use the same one?
Good question. Don't know the answer. That we're gonna have to have a conversation with the attorney. I think that would be the easiest thing, would be to say, you know, who's the school district work with? Can we work with them? And sometimes the answer is no, depending on the nature of the relationship and what we're asking them to do. So I have to ask that question.
I mean, that's the only time when I wonder if the parcel issue might get involved. And be related.
We need an environmental attorney, right?
Yes. Yep, it's a whole different attorney as far as I'm concerned.
I don't really see an option for us. I mean. It's our project, we should be, you know, it seems like that. I'm not sure there's another option, like. We could have the school we could ask the school district, but it's a delay and confusion, whatever, so. We gotta get going.
I don't see that it helps us to
Right.
ask them to either, because I
Right.
think it just makes it come murkier.
Yeah. It does.
So what's the action actually that's beyond the discussion? Is there an action item here for the secret?
I guess the action item would be, should we move forward under the assumption that it's the will of the board that the library be the lead agency on the environmental law? We absolutely can be, because we've done it before. Or do we want to try to, the board want me to work with the school district to try to figure out a contract where we would pay the school district back for having their attorney work on this process and for the school district to be the lead agency?
Thank you for clarifying.
Does anyone have any strong feelings against the library taking the lead? Okay, so then I'll take a motion on the library taking the lead on the secure process.
So move.
Okay. Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand. Opposed, motion carries. Would anyone like to bring up any other new business?
Very quickly, a patron approached me, who works with, EMS, that some of his colleagues had approached him about whether we have an AED at the library, which stands for Automated External Defibrillator. I had to look that up. Or I had to look up what the acronym meant, but that is, basically something that you'll see on the wall in offices and things where you can, charge it and zap them if they're having a cardiac event, and it can be a real game changer. My understanding is that we do not, according to Jeff. We have looked into it over the years and we've been looking for a source of public funding, but we have not been able to identify one. But really all I'm bringing up tonight and asking is to kind of explore this and see what is out there and whether we can just purchase one outright. I know that certain employees will have to have training on it. So what is really required for it? It seems like a good thing for a public space to have, and that many public spaces do have. And Bethlehem EMS has weighed in on that. My understanding is that the cost of the actual equipment itself is somewhere between $1,000 and $3,000. I don't want to give an exact number on that, but I'm just asking if it is the will of the board that we continue to look into that as something that the library would want to pursue.
This is also something that's a requirement for all school districts, and this year they passed a law, and I just noticed I happen to work on this, that summer camps also had to have AED devices. So I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's not that we haven't talked about this a bunch. I've had lots of conversations with Jack Brennan over at Town Emergency Management Office. The traditional, though this appears to be changing, thought was that with the proximity to the police station, every police car has an AED.
They have
In
it
the-
next door.
They do. They have every police car has one in the back.
Town.
So do they have one in town hall? I don't know the answer to that question. But we've talked about this. Yeah, I've looked for member item money just because I said, oh, it would be a great opportunity to have people down and we check, or a thing and a picture opportunity. But it's not a great expense. I think the training and the yearly training and yearly battery maintenance would be the ongoing expense for this. None of those things are insurmountable. So
I'd like to see if we could have a proposal by next meeting with that's what I'm gonna propose, take the idea around the company. Flush out the figures and then bring it up for. How do people feel about that?
Yeah, I'm gonna.
Good friends. Good friends.
I could ask them. I mean, it's really, it was traditionally less about the money and more about the staff commitment and training, which there's a lot of folks
I've done
that.
it. I
Yeah.
know, and it's, it's a little daunting. You don't want to do it unless you're prepared to.
Well, right, and a lot of folks a lot of staff have expressed the desire to not be trained on using it, so. Not everybody's coming.
So maybe also assess the staff between now and then.
Yeah, talk to them.
I will work with Jeff to get more information on that. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Caroline, for bringing that up. Okay, next order of business is old business, library properties consolidation.
Okay, so there's a lot going on. So we just wanted to talk about our options, and my assumptions are not many at this point, but that I think everybody can agree, I think, that all of the 4 library parcels need to be combined into a single parcel to allow for any potential expansion. And I think that would be true of any expansion project that might cross one of those property lines, that in order for the building to cross the property lines, we have to have a single property. That's what I know. The question is, are we interested in pursuing the library owning those properties, talking to the school district and having approaching the school district to see if we can hand over the property to the library? What are the implications of that? We're still working through the implications of that versus having the library hand over the 3 properties that have been purchased subsequent to the initial purchase of the library parcel and have the school district own them. We know if the school district owns them, that any project that meets the requirement to need to be reviewed by state education department would need to be reviewed by the state education department because the property would be owned by the school district. Beyond that, some of my former assumptions we're exploring all of them right now. So whether or not the school district, you heard our conversation with John, whether or not the school district could still bond on the property. If the library owned the property, would the school district still be able to hold the bond? That is apparently a little bit of a legal gray area. Traditionally, I have been told by other colleagues in the library world that if the library owned the property, you don't bond through the school district, you bond traditionally through DASNY. And I know a lot of other school district public libraries who own their properties and they pursue bonding through DASNY. It's not the only option, it's just the least exotic financial instrument to borrow money as a school district public library. Apparently, our attorney's looking into whether the library could own the property and still have the school district bond on the property. So we would have to get everybody to agree on that. Towards this, I just want to make sure that it's the will of the board that we reach out to the Board of Education and have and approach them about a conversation about consolidating the properties and then presenting them, have leadership from the school district, the leadership from the library, and then have our attorney and also the school district attorneys there. We can talk this through and try to figure out a path forward to get the properties consolidated. From the conversations we've had with the town, consolidating the subdivision or unsubdivision of the property from the town's perspective is a relatively uncomplicated and administrative process. There's not really a review that has to happen. It's just something that can be done. The biggest decision would be, how do we approach, if we want the library to own the property, how do we, we have to approach the school district and convince them that they want to give the property, the original library parcel to the library. And if we want the school district to own it, we have to meet with them and convince them that they want 3 other parcels of property in order to combine those. So
Imagine that one conversation is easier than the other.
You would imagine the second.
That one conversation is easier than the other, than saying, here's 3 pieces of property is an easier conversation than. Please give us the library.
I'm not
Not sure.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I actually, it's, there are some liabilities to the school district for owning the property, that they may not be aware of. And we could explain to them. In most
We
cases,
also want a lease. We also want an agreement that
if they own,
or
right,
if they own it, we have the authority to do it or basically what we want.
If we own it, does that increase our liabilities, meaning like, does it increase insurance?
no, so we already insured, and then we checked that when Judy was still at the school district, we checked with her, we said, I think we called up, because there was a story about a school district library and the school district both had the building insured, so effectively the same taxpayers were double insuring. So I just reached out to say, I just want to check and make sure that you're not insuring the library property, and they were not, so they're not insuring the library property. We are subject to the school district's annual inspection of the library for their insurance company, because I think at least the insurance company understands that there's some liability and they come over and inspect us each year. So
You sent an email from our attorney with a number of attachments
Yes.
today.
Yeah.
So I encourage people to read that. I read most of them, and the longer one at the end of 4th or 3rd or 4th. I have to go back, but he or she, I'm not sure, the attorney highlighted several passages. The last one, which I think is letter D, caught my attention. So I have to go through that, and I would almost want them to explain that to us in terms of physical changes to the library and whether or not the library would have to go through the zoning board and all the rest.
and that is an active area of when we're talking about school district public library property, that is deep into the lore, where one of the attorneys that we traditionally rely on for information about that is Whiteman, Oskinen and Hannah, Bob Schofield and Ellen Baca. Whiteman, Oskinen and Hannah have been sort of in our area, explored that the most, but Whiteman, Oskinen and Hannah is one of the school district's lead attorneys, and in that case, they're absolutely not able to represent us without some sort of letter of agreement where. Because this hinges exactly on the school district and library relationship. In a lot of cases, We do have a relationship with Whiteman Osterman, but they are for areas and matters that are far away from our relationship with the school district. This exactly hinges on our relationship with the school district. And so it's like they would not represent us.
So that, I think for me, I need to read those sections again and then have an attorney present so I could ask all my questions. Because the issue is if the school district owns the consolidated property, they don't have to go through to change things. We would not have to go through the zoning board of appeals.
Thank you, Charmaine, because that's well established. It's sort of the reason that when I came and I approached last time, I said our architects and the landscape architects are recommending that we consolidate these and that the school district end up owning them. That is because our architects and landscape architects understand well the consequences of having the school district own the property. The fact that the project is evaluated by SED completely immune from that review. They know that for sure. We do not know for sure, and they certainly, our architects and landscape architects, are very not sure and about the consequences of the library owning the property. Some of our local school district libraries have gone pretty far down the road to explore this concept of intergovernmental immunity and how the library in its own right is not subject to local zoning regulations, again, outside of the highway easement, with a bunch of caveats and asterisks. Not because we're related to the school district, because we are our own government entity in our own right. For instance, we don't pay town taxes, nor do we pay school district taxes, and that's because of this immunity from these other areas. That isn't a thing that I believe is true, but that lots of local zoning boards don't believe is true, and so can lead to more hassle. We have to, it leads to another conversation with the local zoning board while we try to convince them that this is true. And if they agree, it's easy. But in a lot of cases, there can be confusion about this because, again, it is so what we're doing is not that what we're doing is unusual. Just there are not many school district public libraries, and there's not a lot of precedent or lawyers who understand all of the permutations and iterations that we're talking.
But if the school owns property, there are no zoning concerns.
Correct. That's why. Oh, sorry.
And two, I think I remember from our last discussion about this, going through the SED is a little cheaper for taxpayers than going through DASNY.
I asked that question. How do we know that?
Yeah, we don't know that, and so that
I think it may be true. We gotta land on that.
Yeah.
That and it's not really that the SED. It would be having the district bond or ban for us. I'm learning a bunch of new terms. Having the district borrow the money is traditionally thought to be less expensive than bonding through DASNY. But again, that's hearsay. I do not want to say that authoritatively until I can learn to say that.
And also then that question is if the library owns all the properties and we want to go through the school board to bond, how can the school board bond for property it doesn't own?
Correct. Right. And so what I had been told in most of the legal classes that I had heretofore was that in order for a school district to bond on a school district library property, that the school district has to own the property. Our attorney thinks that may not be true, but I don't know the answer at all. We're out on the gray edge of this. Traditionally, it was, so for instance, Albany Public Library, school district library, they own their own properties, not owned by the Albany City School District at all. They bonded their large, when they expanded their project, they bonded through DASNY for that exact reason. They didn't even bother working with the school district. They bonded straight through DASNY for that reason. But that doesn't mean that that's true in all cases, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it's less expensive.
So do you want a decision from us tonight on?
I don't think we have anything like enough information for a decision.
We need to get to that. So
Here's what I would like, and I don't know how the other attorneys, and before I can make a vote on this, I would like I'm not sure if what you provided from the attorney today was a draft or not.
It is.
Okay, so I would want us to read that, then I would want a final memo, though it's not a draft, with the attorney's opinion on all this stuff. And then I want the attorney to come to one of our meetings, we go on executive session.
Yeah, and she's absolutely.
Yeah, so I can ask, because that person has to answer our questions. And I don't know, or it's a vague, it's not gonna be sufficient for me.
Yeah.
So the attorney comes, we pepper all the questions, and then based off of those discussions, then I think I know I would be in a position to vote. But absent a clear legal opinion from our attorney and the opportunity to question the attorney about aspects of that memo that they're gonna write, I wouldn't be able to. And mostly I'm interested in the whole idea of the zoning board of appeals, all this, because as I read that last highlighted paragraph very quickly today. I read that to say we would be subject to all zoning. The whole thing about Hamlet's and all this, I don't get, but anyway, if we're at Hamlet. I took that highlighted section to read. We are required to all other requirements of zoning and applying to the town. But I could be wrong on that.
And I understand that's her opinion, and I
Yeah.
absolutely respect it, and
Yeah.
she's more likely right than
Okay,
not right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's just, but there.
So I want a final memo, like with the opinion of the attorney, and then I want the attorney.
And so that would push this decision on another month. Does that at all affect the project from
It
continuing to move
it
forward?
doesn't. I think there's kind of two separate things going on. We need to make a decision about, or have more information about which of these two, library owns the property, school district owns the property. And I think even in our conversation with John tonight, his assumption is the school district's gonna own the property, right? So, that's not a guaranteed information, but that's our architects are leaning in that way. Though they absolutely said they would support us through not that project if that was the will of them. So I think because it's known and it's simpler and it's much more common for school districts to be going out for projects, I think everybody understands how that works. And the other way is a little bit more complicated. But I don't want to hold up the process any further of us reaching out to the school district to have a conversation with them so that we can lay out the memo from our attorney with the leadership from the school district about here are some of the consequences of one way or the other, that we are requesting that we combine, and we need to have a conversation at some point to say, we want to combine this all into one thing. Let's get it that, is that.
I think perhaps between now and the next month's meeting, we get that final report from the attorney and we agree that that person's gonna come and be with us. Is to reach out to the district and have a conversation, and I would ask them. If you were to sell the parcel to us, what you need to go back to the board, what would you ask for?
Yeah.
The price, and then we would say, if you were to ask us to give it to you, Celsius, what, and then our decision is going to be, what is the price? So we can at least have those conversations to see test the water.
Right.
I know what the water was last time.
Yes, and it was.
I know, because I was on that.
Make your decision pretty quickly for you. So and I just part of what I sent out from the attorney today is the fact that in the comptroller's opinion about the school district, public library and the school district are able to hand back and forth these properties. That's legal to do. There's not, it's not a necessarily complicated process. So.
All right, so that's tabled till next time.
It is, but we're not gonna stop moving forward, so I will
Okay,
continue to pursue, a more solid legal opinion, I hear that, we'll get, November is gonna be a busy month, because we've got the audit presentation, we'll ask Stephanie to come in and talk to you as well, and I will, work with Mark to reach out, because it's not really from me, it's from you and me, reaching out to the school district leadership and starting the conversation, just so that, they're aware that this is something that we're pursuing.
And maybe with a vision, and by December, the board is coming
Yeah.
together to vote,
I think if there's an agreement, the process is fast and relatively painless. It's getting to that agreement that is going to be the unique situation is that all of the taxpayers that own the library are all exactly the same taxpayers that own the school. So it's not like the town and the school district where there are people who are in one and not in another. Everybody who's in the school district is automatically in the library district. So there's really, to sell property back and forth is a really silly zero. Right, so if we're giving the school district some money, we're gonna be raising the money from the taxpayers who are exactly the same taxpayers who benefit from the money going to the school district, right? So it's It's a little bit of a,
And when the property was originally transferred, wasn't it transferred for $1?
right. So. More on this, but
Okay, all right, so moving on, the next item is plaza entry.
Plaza entry,
Did we already
okay.
discuss that?
we discussed that a little bit. Yeah, it's blacktop. There's questions about the bricks, but I think it looks nice and everybody who's walked on it. The family that got to walk on it first was very excited.
Great. All right, next item is mileage reimbursement policy on page 29.
Went before the policy committee, there are no changes approved by the policy committee.
Get past this monster property document.
So it was just due in the queue to be.
Yeah. No changes.
So this is just a first reading or
No, if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them, but it's just the first read, right? It just basically says we'll use the IRS reimbursement rate. If the library van is available, we expect employees to use the library van. If they choose to use their own vehicle instead of the library van, when the van's available, we're not reimbursing them. But if we're asking them to go someplace on work time and they're using their own vehicle and the van's not available, we reimburse at the IRS reimbursement.
So how this will get first read, if there's any feedback, policy committee meets before the next meeting. If there's feedback, the policy committee considers it, revise the policy for the second read. Once the second read, then we vote on it, so.
all right, so the next item then is gifts, memorials, and bequests policy.
Can I go ahead and take it? All right, so based on the last feedback from the last meeting, this policy and the what we call naming opportunities was one policy when it came to the board last time. It was suggested that we separate them out to 2, if not 3 policies. So we decided to do 2. So gifts, memorials, and bequests became a single policy, and the naming opportunities is another policy. So this policy is up for, I believe, a first read.
Yes.
Because the text was pretty much an edit of the existing gifts policy. It was basically wordsmith. So this policy pretty much existed. I think we took out alternate forms of financial stuff, or if it was, say, you can send an inquiry, but I don't believe there's anything controversial about this. Then we just separated it off. We took it off of the
This is our current policy, basically.
to some extent with some wordsmithing, yes, and some taking out some things, yes.
One of the most common questions I get is about where should we send a check? That's what really, I get more $25 and $15 gifts than anything else. And the biggest thing, people find their way to this policy and they say, where do we send it? So,
And I think the existing policy had books and print material in it. That's been taken off.
Yeah.
But those are the pretty much the only changes.
yeah, I'm willing to.
The only, and
That's
my apologies that I missed the policy committee meeting, I had a work conflict. My only recommendation on this is in the 1, 2, 3, third paragraph. The library cannot accept gifts, memorials, or bequests for restrictions or special conditions, period. I just think that we take that gray area away. Just
Okay, and I'm making my life really easy. I just want to be, just a real world example of something that happened. Yeah, just continue to talk through it, right? So we had a patron leave us a collection of statue figurines. And in the will, there was a restriction that they had to be displayed in the library. So I brought that to the board and the board accepted that as a condition of us accepting the gift. So if we're not gonna entertain that, that's okay, but it just.
well, let me say this, I think. We probably have discretion to do that, whether this says this or not. I think that this particular wording invites the special conditions in some way. I think, I mean, the board can really do any, I mean, it's well within our discretion if we decide to change it, we can change it. I think that saying unless there's, I think that invites a lobby. Or, okay, I want to give you this stuff, but it has, you know, that's just my only objection, and those are just my comments to the board, but I go with a little.
So if I wanna give, like, I mean, this example, I wanna give, say, a 1,000 records to the library, the condition that they do not sell them for 10 years. That's or 5 years, whatever. That's a special condition and a restriction. So, I mean, then we say we can do whatever we want with them in the bottom of the policy.
Yeah, I mean, and
Right.
don't we have a thing on selling?
Yeah, we can do it right here. I'll see.
It reserves the right to sell, destroy, I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, in some way, it's like, why, I don't know. I think we should. The prior approval, I think, covers us in some ways, because the boards will ebb and flow over the
Yeah.
years. And I think that, you know, that gives us enough authority to say, no, that condition doesn't make community sense. This one does make sense. So I don't know. So, you know, I can come up with other examples, but. I don't know, it's just interesting. I mean, in some ways, it's like, why do we care? If as long as the board gets prior approval, then.
No, I agree with you, and that's kind of the point, is that I think prior approval gives us enough latitude to say, okay, we can do this or not do this. I think that given,
You just don't like the
The
current
language,
wording
yeah.
that's
Yeah,
been.
no, she's talking.
I'm saying that unless such restrictions or special conditions receive prior approval by the. I think that, like I said, I think that invites.
But by saying you can apply for prior,
Yeah.
special considerations, you invite that.
You invite, yeah, exactly. Sorry.
It's also on an agenda, you know, and then people can say no, or the board can say no, or yay or nay.
Well, can I ask, why do we not want restrictions or special conditions? Like,
You wouldn't
Why
want
is the line
someone to
there?
say, I'm gonna donate. I don't know, I only know state land examples, but like, I'm gonna donate 1,000 records to the library, and on the third Sunday of every month. You're gonna play them and only my family can listen to them in the community room. So you don't want restrictions that are going to be in conflict with the library's mission and goals. But I think it is sort of setting, if we end it. And don't allow for it, then are we actually creating more work because then we're gonna have to deny every little thing.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm more worried, because we're dealing in physical things, like that's what all of our examples are. I'm more worried about here is $50,000 for the library. If you agree to incorporate programming about this subject.
Yeah, but the program's on in here.
No, I know, but I'm saying that, but a gift is, so I agree to give $50,000 on the condition that you do A, B, and C.
But that they're always open on Sunday.
Yeah.
Or they're not open on Sunday.
Yeah, what says no, then you give the-
What if you make the wording a little bit more general so that it gives the Board of Trustees the option to make whatever decision is appropriate by saying something like the library generally does not accept gifts, memorials, etc., with restrictions.
I mean, in the first sentence you have it, reserves the right to accept or decline to the
Yeah,
country
that's
for any reason.
Yeah, that's right, just thinking,
Right.
but like I said, it's up to them. Everyone knows my piece, it's up to them.
Right. I mean, the other thing is, I would assume you're not gonna bring up to the board every gift memorial request.
Almost none of them come with conditions, and I think that's.
Right, so I mean, just in general, right, so you wouldn't say, I'm gonna, like, someone's gonna give us $10,000, you gotta vote on it, no, or you just say, thank you, right? It's
Right,
great.
well, we accept, and that's just it, I think this is more about my interaction with the public.
Yeah,
And so really, I mean, to take it off makes my life cleaner and easier in some ways. Obviously, the trustees have the right to do whatever they want. But for the policy, for me, it's mostly about my interaction with the public. So someone said, oh, we want to donate these figurines to the library, there's special conditions. I say, no. Can't do it, here's the policy.
Yeah,
then the question is,
they could appeal it.
and they might or might not. And that's the question is, do you want to leave that invitation open?
Right.
Or specifically, do you not want to leave it? That's the decision we're talking about, because it's, I don't actually get too many restrictions. People send us checks literally, not daily, but
Yeah, all the time.
many times a month we get checks from folks.
What about the example that came, like, the one example that recently came to me was someone wants to give money to sponsor a children's program.
Right, I think that's the naming opportunity. Yeah, right. It's.
Well, is it that or is it I mean, that's the thing, but like, if you know, I want to sponsor a children's program, but it's anonymous, you don't have to name it after any. Then is it a naming?
But then it comes to the board says, beginning.
Right. So,
But does that first
but
sentence
when it comes to the
really,
board, but that was something like that
clarify
from the
that?
board, a gift more
I don't know.
request.
I don't, without referencing something in one of those sentences, I don't know that you see that where it's going to make a decision.
Yeah.
From looking at the policy. That's the only.
So where are we? So this is the policy as
See,
written.
I think it's okay, but
So this is the policy as written.
yeah,
Proposed and
I
amended.
see Caroline's point, but I think it's okay, it's okay.
I would say when Caroline first mentioned that, I'm like nodding my head, yes, it's inviting. Lobbying, but the real world example is that not many people have conditions. And we all know, when the second step is to reach out to the Board of Trustees, even on very hot button issues, we don't often hear from the public, so. Perhaps it's not as much of a lobbying invite as we might think, so I'm fine with the wording as it is.
I'm okay with it too. I mean, and we can always revisit, right? I mean, if
Oh, yeah,
suddenly Jeff is, or we're spending every board meeting debating restrictions, but I think, I don't know, I'm comfortable.
How often does this happen when this one goes up for revision? Do you notice it on the bottom?
I mean, when it's due.
Yeah, when does it do and when does it go back up for revision? Some of them are late.
I don't think it's late, I think it's because we split the.
Okay.
One to the naming,
Okay.
and it came up because of the.
Okay, so it might go on to a rotation for a regular revision anyway, like every 5 or 10 years, but it can always be brought up. Anytime for.
we do it on a year.
I appreciate you hearing me out, but I'm hearing for it that everyone's fine, so I'm.
So it goes up for second read and approval next time. The reason I talked to Jen is because she's the keeper of all policies. And she's great. So,
Okay, so then our next item is policy committee update on naming opportunities. Pages 31 and 32.
so this is not up for a first read because we're still working. And we're trying to make manageable chunks, given the time we want to have discussion. So we're gonna propose that there's 2 discussion decision points here. One is, it came up last time. Can people offer to make contributions and have naming opportunities, we don't call them rights, for program series? So that's one thing, and then the other thing is towards the end, we want feedback on the draft chart. So this came up, was discussed, I think 2 people, according to the minutes, expressed strong opinions one way. I wasn't sure that was a decision of the board, so we're bringing it back.
Can I ask a question? So did the policy committee, I mean, look at other libraries and like, what is the general, I mean, that's what I try to do, is like, okay, what are people doing? I mean, it seemed like from my quick research that it is potentially happening, but there wasn't a ton of information out there. So can you share sort of what is the norm, or what's current, what are other libraries doing with programs?
Program specifically.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of examples. Most of the naming, they'll call them naming rights, policies, like naming opportunity policies, focus on the second part, which is this chart. It's a lot of those, you name the room, name the space, name the chair, name the table, name all that stuff. So that seems to be most of the spaces. There are not a lot of library policies focus on program series. I know they're common in academia, they're common in other organizations, but for libraries, I certainly hear about them, but they may just do them and not even have discussed it in a policy, so.
And I can tell you, I looked at Gilderland's policy earlier today, and it seems very intentionally do not include programming. They include only tangible items.
We've done this, the Wenzel series.
Well, that's what I wondered.
We've done it.
Has it been really more considered under the gifts than it has
Right.
under this?
And that's what it does. It's so one-off. Every one of those came to the board. So, I mean, I think it's good to have it in a policy. If whether we're gonna do it or not, I think it's important to have that stated in the policy because I have, someone who's approached us to do this right now. And so, I'm like, oh, we're working on it, it would be great to have an answer one way or the other, is it, and I think the expressions last time were that it's potentially problematic to have the programs included in there. And if it's just no, that's okay. It's no.
So if somebody said they wanted to name a program or series and we said no, would the next response be, but if you still want to give a donation here, what's, you're not just saying, no, we're not taking your money.
Right, but it's not
I mean, it's someone wants the situation that I'm thinking about is someone wants to name a children's program series, children's hour series, I think it is, or story time program series after her mom. And it hadn't been done in the past, and they want to re-up it. And my understanding is that the librarians have full discretion about what would be the program. So in some ways, we're walking away from a gift.
Right.
As long as the librarians have full discretion, or the administration has full discretion about what it is, it's kind of like, why walk away from a gift?
Well,
That's what I'm kind of like, that's where I'm conflicted.
What kind of vetting would be done on a person, or is it just?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
Yeah, well, my sense is you would only accept money for a program series if someone said, Charmaine's giving you $50,000 for children's stories, period. That's the only thing you can accept. If Charmaine says it has to be on this theme or by this author, say no restrictions.
Right.
You're either giving it from each children's programming or whatever, and that's.
Unless it were, what if it were a broad category,
Right.
More inclusive or.
Right, so I think what we're headed towards is including it or not. Anything that is named is going to come here for approval before it's accepted.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be accepting a program series, even though I have in the past,
yeah,
and the library has in the past. I think that's good to have that laid out, that if you're doing this, whether it's a thing, a doohickey, or a program series, that it needs approval of the board, and that's that vetting process, and then the board decides what the vetting process is. What is it that you want it to be? What sorts of restrictions might you could class it as a restriction, right? What sort of restriction would you be comfortable with? Or no, it's not, we're not doing it, and that's okay too. It's just, I think the silence in our current policy invites it invites the ambiguity, and it is the source of confusion that we've got going. So,
I mean, the Wenzel lecture, right? That's something that, like, I don't know, Wenzel was on the board.
he was a board president for
President, okay.
years.
And they did a lecture series.
Yep.
And I don't know, I mean, I went to a couple of times, I have no idea, I remember, like, it wasn't a certain theme or.
No,
Right.
we've never accepted, I mean, I don't think at any point we would have accepted any restriction on the content of.
So it's like
of
Sunday
series.
lecture or something like that.
Yeah, and I think that the
Sunday
desire of the
music.
family, in my understanding, the Wenzel lecture series was supposed to be a more erudite, a little bit more academic. Hire in a speaker of
I'm
note.
surprised I went to that, actually. But not many, didn't go to many, you could say, right? But yeah, so in some ways, it's like, why, like, that's not a bad thing, right? But
Do you have a recommendation one way or the other? Just, I mean, because I know we have concerns and people express stuff, but do.
I think
Day-to-day life.
if they happen very rarely. I think it is normal for lots of organizations. My experience is only in academia where people will name like literally, you know, oh, this is the Humpty Hump Speaker Series named after this former faculty member.
Yeah.
And they just give money, and the Wenzel lecture, it lasted as long as it lasted because that's how long the gift lasted, and when the money was up, the series ended. And the same way with the Siegel Memorial. So I understand the reticence and the concern about vetting the person, and I think it needs to be done a little bit more formally. I don't necessarily have a problem with it as long as we're laying out that the restriction is that there's an opportunity to name it, not about the content of and we never would have accepted. I mean, I don't think we ever would have obtained it. I don't know how much money that would have. But
Right.
But I don't think that at any point in the history of the library that would have been entertained. So I don't have a problem with it. I think it's important that it's memorialized enough that it has to come to the board to be approved.
If we took some language out of our oath of whatever it is, because it talks about open access and blah, 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 and added to the policy, would that help at all or not?
No, I mean, I appreciate the points that Jeff is making. I mean, I don't think it's any secret that I would prefer that we don't open it up, but for naming rights, but I understand and appreciate your point that in putting it in the policy, it takes it out of the Wild West. Because there certainly is a position that silence equals consent. And what we are doing is avoiding that, and to your point, if it is happening, like this is happening in the real world, at least then it brings it here. It doesn't put it in this murky area where maybe Jeff can decide, maybe it has to go to us, or. So I appreciate Jeff's points on that, and with that in mind,
Right,
you
and
know,
that said, we've never been approached by PepsiCo to have the Pepsi speaker series, nor have I been approached by someone, anybody who I believe was sort of controversial in any way, shape, or form. I don't believe Theodore Wenzel was particularly controversial, nor do I believe that Ann Siegel was particularly controversial. So they went by easily because they went by easily and they wouldn't have been controversial. But the thing is, that doesn't mean that it wouldn't be controversial. And that's to the point that you were making last meeting. You don't know.
no, but to your point, at least this regulates it.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I think having
That is a rule.
if it's in here, it's better. Something.
So I guess possibly I'm the only one who's not in favor of including programming and naming rights. I think that programming is transient in the way that it's constantly moving and shifting. And with the example of a story series, that same person could have their name on the story room or certain item in the room. Yeah, I just worry that programming it can be political. I think it would be better not to include it. I wish now I had looked into every local library to look at their naming rights policy. Like I said, Guilderland specifically does not include programming. I assume there was a decision made there. Because it's kind of obvious that it's not in there. So, yeah, so that's where I stand.
Thursday, we can ask.
But so this is not a first read, so we can always come back and revisit,
Right.
but we're trying to get some decisions on some of the pieces. Because we've got like other things like charts and like months that we've got to move on to. We don't have to necessarily decide today, but this is like a decision point. So we can so what do you want to do with this text? Do we revisit it, or do we want to say that it either goes or stays? In the draft and we move forward. It's just that's how I see it. We can revisit this again in November. Right, we are up to November, right? Or we say, okay, we can move on with the decision on this text. Where are we?
I could be okay with it. I think the second, the third statement down paragraph, only, yeah. I mean, I think that's really important there, that really says that we can reject anyone who isn't their, any entity whose actions, whatever, aren't compatible with our mission, our vision, or long-term. Maybe you want to put in a long-term plan or, I think that covers us, so I could be okay with programs, but I'm not, I'm a little bit on the fence. I could be swayed either way, but I think if it is in there, having that strong statement that it needs to be consistent. The other thing I did see, I was trying to Google all kinds of policies too. Someone had something about, and I could try to find it, also kind of not accepting naming or something from entities that maybe they're not compatible with children in particular, like, certain companies or certain entities that, you might want to have a complete exclusion on, like, I don't know, breweries or, alcohol, tobacco, that kind of a thing. I don't know that we need to go that far because it happens so rarely, but again, if it would make you feel more comfortable to have more specific exclusions because it's not compatible with children's programs or something like that. You could also look at that.
Well, see, that would be tough because we also have adult programming, and if you have home brewers, they might like a series on, that kind of thing, so.
I think this gives us the discretion to do that, though, to kind of make that judgment.
Correct.
I mean, personally, I think it's better to have something in it than say nothing. Because I think saying nothing these days is not a good thing.
I think,
And I think what saved us years ago is that kind of stuff didn't happen then.
but I think it can also be in there to say the library won't entertain sponsors, naming opportunities for programs and program series. I think it having the assertive statement in there either way, I think is the important, for my state, that's the important part of this.
I'm willing to leave it in and see how it goes. If it needs to be revised, it'll be revised. That said, I've been looking at it for months, that's why.
I think that.
So I will leave it to the discretion of the board, but I think given what's just presented as historical precedent, someone's waiting on a program, I'm willing to leave it in. But I prefer to the will of the board, the majority of the board.
Is there another thing you need, some other turquoise text you had, anything you want to comment on the chart too?
Well, so we're trying to get a decision on the program series part, and then the chart is much more like open-ended discussions. So
Right.
the question with the program and program series is, can we move on, leaving it in?
Yeah, I think.
Should we revisit it or should we take it out? That's,
My sense is leave it in for now, then we.
Okay, it'll come back up for the first read.
Up for first read, you can ask more questions, then come back, we have 3 shots, 2 more shots at it, so.
okay,
Yeah.
Okay, so then my secondary point, if it sounds like we're gonna leave it in. I did notice, again, in some research earlier today, that another library, I did not write down which one, has a line in their policy that says no program may be named for an elected public official.
That's a good idea.
I didn't know if that's something that we should include in our policy.
Is it like a current standing elected? official?
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Like current standing elected or a.
Oh, I just, what is that? I just wrote down was it
Belt series.
for an elected, so it must be current.
It's gotta be,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a good idea.
Well, we don't, do you want it to just be current? Because if I proposed the Hillary Clinton historical,
Right.
lecture, I feel like we get some letters about that. But she would be outside of that restriction.
Alright, you want to suggest is bump that back to the policy committee
Yeah.
to explore elected official clause. Okay, and we'll let us,
Yeah.
bring that, okay.
Library.
Yeah, you're.
Yeah, you're elected,
I mean, would that exclude any former trustee?
absolutely, in school board.
Sorry, Mark.
So
Give her those records.
Current, you're already gone, it's already gone.
State directors.
Okay, official,
Right.
official, current, or okay, we'll do some research, we'll take, okay. So now it comes up to the chart. This is the first time that the board has seen a chart.
Yeah.
That we've pulled from different charts, so all we want is some general feedback, we don't want amounts on there. did we miss something or is something on there that shouldn't be? That's where we're kind of very preliminary discussions here. Do we, this anticipates the renovation also. Is there a room up there that shouldn't be? Is there a room not on there that should be? If that makes sense.
The only thing I saw, which I think is great, and the chart's great, is you could, someone could do a donation on behalf, like trees or landscaping. You have outdoor gardens, but does that anticipate like, I'm gonna name a tree? And I want a tree donated, and then if we do more benches, we have more opportunity, that does that include pavilion? So like, I think you got more outdoor spaces that you can. I don't know how you wanna call them, but
Didn't the school district get into issues with trees recently?
Yeah.
With having to move some of them?
Oh, I don't know. I don't.
yeah,
Right.
right,
What if we just put an extra space for,
other,
other.
Miscellaneous.
You know,
yeah.
someone wants a picnic
Yeah.
table.
Well, and I was gonna say, what actually happens is picnic tables,
We're gonna
The
go under the other. thing.
chess, right, but
The
that's,
chess table thing.
but there's a naming opportunity
Yeah,
there
Oh,
too.
yeah.
So it's really, we're kind of silent, again, we're still silent on that. So, but it's the benches. I mean, I don't know how many benches we could.
I think you wanna be careful about
benches.
like having just benches.
I know, yeah.
We're halfway there now.
And we also thought the chart is for like the basic big ticket
Big
items.
sums, yeah.
I mean, it's giving you basically targets for someone. So if someone says, I want the children's library, this is what, you know, we're basically, we had this whole discussion before, are we selling space? Yes. So this isn't meant to be, everything is like the bigger ticket items.
Okay, then you can just do other things.
So,
And the only, I think I asked last time, because I saw it in some other policies, like a collection, you know, like the young adult section or the fiction or nonfiction. I don't know if that's, I'm not saying necessarily that we
Yeah.
want to do that, but I did see that in some other. policies.
okay, collection.
And what about the library of things? That'd be something
Oh,
that could
yeah.
be,
Is that, that's not.
Like,
What is that? Is that like a room or is that?
No, it's
thing?
It's like a library.
Well, no, it's just stuff, yeah, but it's like.
it's like a collection, yeah.
It is close.
It is a collection. Okay.
So we need to add.
It could just be.
Okay.
Or museum.
Okay, so we'll add a row for collections.
Oh, museum passes, that's pretty good.
So we feel like we've had a committee, we think we have enough to talk to, who's working on it. Does the board feel like we should start plugging in numbers? To that, can we draft up some more numbers at the next policy committee meeting and?
Yeah, I think you gotta, yeah.
And what about the possibility as we're heading into the building project of having, I almost hate to use the word bricks, but you know, on a walkway where people put their
Right.
family
Buy a
names
brick,
and,
sure, yeah.
People-
That's like a capital campaign, I think that's.
okay, so different area.
Yeah. It's like a. Buy a brick and someone runs it here.
Yeah, but that's fundraising.
Fundraising, you probably would have to run that through the Friends.
Yeah.
And that's where if you, so the Friends, I would just bring up once again, the Friends are interested in some sort of thing that they could sponsor. Let's say, for instance, there's the pavilion, like the outside concert event space, right? Sort of a carve offable thing, not part of the main library, within the capacity, 6-ish figures, something that the Friends could donate. They might approach you and say, hey, could we as the Friends fundraise with bricks or somehow memorial, hopefully not bricks, somehow memorial there. That's, it would have to be a negotiation between you and the Friends.
So we'll start looking at other policies, we'll start plugging in numbers, add a column, row on collections, got it, thank you.
The only other thing I think of real quick is the lactation room, I know we talked about that, is that still even in the project?
Yes,
Okay.
the lactation space, yes, and so that's why we're not down to those, we were trying to buy one of the Mamava, like, things that we could fit in there. I think if they incorporated a little bit more into the building project, they've heard loudly that we're interested in a space like that, so.
So should we call those special spaces or family spaces, or should we put lactation spaces? Like row,
I'm assuming that the lactation room, if they use that.
we had another row.
Yep.
on-
It's kind of like family space, because I've seen like restrooms can be sponsored and things like that. We're definitely to that.
Yeah.
Also the curbside window, the drive-through window,
Okay, we had another roof curbside.
It's revenue. Yeah.
Exactly.
Alright, so we have 3 rows, I think. Lactation, curbside and collection schedule. Thank you.
And other.
Another.
And other. Alright.
Okay. All right, so moving on, is there any other old business? Oh, you know what, first of all, thank you, Charmaine, for all your hard work on
Yes.
this.
Yeah.
I think the committee's great. She's invaluable and Jeff has spent a lot of time with it, so thank you. So Jen is invaluable. I think we actually had like a coffee party one day, just to like appreciate everybody. But thank you, yes, and the committee has worked really hard.
So any other old business? No, future business? Okay. Jeff, is there any public participation before we go to executive session?
I have not. So I think I did, Suzanne did send the presentation, so I'll throw that to you.
Can I backtrack to old business? For a second. The evaluation, since Sarah's not here, will kick off this month.
Yep.
And so I think things will be probably sent online. We should just keep our heads up for that. And if you feel like you can't fill it out, it's okay. I think, because there'll be a lot of things asking you to rate just performance, just, thank you. Sorry.
Amazing.
So no public participation?
No public participation.
Okay. All right, was there a specific wording that you wanted? to
Yes,
use for executive
there
session?
is. Who wants to do this? Okay, so what you're gonna be voting for is vote to enter executive session to discuss the proposed acquisition, sale, or lease of real property.
Do I need to repeat that?
So, no, hopefully someone wants to, I can't,
Okay,
I
so do
don't.
we have a motion?
I move to enter executive session to discuss the acquisition, sale, or purchase of real or leased property.
Yes.
Seconded.
That
It's
All
good.
those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
All right,